Now this is a story all about how one wall in my house got knocked down, and 8 months later I sit in this chair to tell you the whole dang story of how we got here. Greetings loved ones and welcome back to my channel. All I have to say to start off this video, other than my rap, is that good things come to those who wait. I finally have the finished wing renovation video to give to you after giving you little breadcrumbs along the way over the course of 2025. I'm gonna be taking you through all of the steps today, but I'll give you a little bit of a backstory. So this is the biggest part of our house. It's over 1,000 square feet. And we always had it sort of temporarily filled and never really fully decorated because we always had a vision for how we would renovate this space. The space consists of one long sort of hallway, a little tiny room that is off the side of our new bathroom, a bedroom, and a living room. The full vision for this space that I'm currently sitting in now talking to you took 8 months to come into fruition, and I've been joking to Finley that it's like he's pregnant, not me, and that he's reaching full term of this pregnancy because, wow, we have been navigating a lot through the course of renovating this space. And like any space that you finish in your house, you know, I'm sitting in it and I'm like, there's more to do. You know, I'm looking at all of the doors and windows and being like, more to come. But we started this project at the end of last summer, and with summer and travel and navigating sicknesses and the holidays and then me getting pregnant again and being unwell in my first trimester and all this stuff, my one-man construction team really had to split his efforts in a lot of different areas, not just focus on this one project. But this has been the big ongoing project in the background of our lives for this many months, and it's finally time to share all of it with you today. So I'm going to talk you through the original vision for this space when we moved into this house in the summer of 2023. We had a lot of ideas, like we thought we were gonna knock down all of the walls until the second beam, which I don't know why we thought we needed that much space, but I'm sure some of you know when you move into a house, you have a lot of energy to name the projects you're going to do, and you got a lot of plans rolling around in your head, and you don't really know which ones are gonna work out, but you at least have some ideas. And some of them stuck, like we wanted to wire in overhead lighting, we wanted to replace all of the fogged windows in this space, which is a work in progress because we're gonna do that when we do exterior siding work this spring. And it is currently spring when I'm filming this, but we're just trying to get all of that ordered and scheduled. And we also wanted to like fix our pellet stove and all that kind of jazz, which we did end up doing. But really the vision I want you to get is how these rooms originally looked, right? Like when we moved in, we had 2 of these rooms basically turn into storage areas while we worked on many other renovations inside and outside of the house. And for the living room, we always had this kind of loose living room setup of sorts. And it had this little partition wall in it that we always knew that we were going to knock down, but we never really saw a need to do that until July of 2025. So like 2 years later, when we found a furniture piece that we really loved for all of our board game storage, and we decided that it would also serve as a great half wall that would open up the space visually into the living room and double as storage. And that is where this whole renovation started, just with the wall debacle. Because after we put in the shelf, Finley had another idea to wire in overhead lighting and a ceiling fan. And he was like, okay, if I do that, I need a place that would make sense for your hand to find a switch. And the only place would be if we put another wall here. And I was like, dude, why would we put another wall there when we just visually opened up this space? He wasn't trying to put it in the same area, but he was trying to put it like, you know, next to the area. And I was like, no, we're not just doing a little jutting out wall partition. Please put on your construction hat again and go back to the drawing board, sir. I reject the blueprints. So then he came to me with this gorgeous plan to expand the blue room's original framing to add a closet and a reading nook, because we had already been talking about turning that space into a kid's room. And like I said, it was just being used as storage for all of our decor and many things that we hadn't like hung on the walls or the furniture we hadn't laid out. But this house famously had no downstairs closets when we moved in. So I knew that a closet space was necessary, and the reading nook was just like the cherry on top. I was like, okay, your mind. But once I signed off on that idea, things really took off from there. And by early August, he had created a whole new floor plan idea with dimension and new entryways and archways into rooms. And he was talking about hiring painters to really brighten the space, all while redoing the old electrical in this house and prepping to go on summer travels, which we had a lot of. So for most of the end of summer, we were just out of town, but when I was here, I was still collecting my little furniture pieces because I finally had visions for the rooms and was seeing it a little more clearly. I've realized throughout this process, I am not a verbal learner. Finley can explain something to me of how it's going to look, and I'll be like, totally. Draw me a blueprint, please, on SketchUp. Otherwise, I can't see it. So that's been really nice to learn about myself. But mostly during the time where Finley was going through all those steps, what I was doing was going through all of our belongings that were in storage, basically since we had moved in, and grouping them based on what finished room I wanted them to go in. I was culling things and donating items and rooting my handyman on while he installed new drywall and prepared everything for the painters. So I did mention before, like, this is a one-man show, all of the renovations that Finley does in this house. He explained to me one time that all of his like original visions for this house, he at least wants to see through or change, but he wants to like touch every area of the home and just look at the guts and just see what's under there and see if he can make his original vision come to life, or if it needs to be hired out, or if it's worth his time to fix. All of that kind of stuff. But like the amount of pride that you can have in your home when you know all of the work, every little corner is yours and your creative touch. I think that there's just a lot of, pride and merit in that for him. So that's kind of his little backstory of why he very rarely hires out anything. But he decided to hire out the painting for this space because he does not like painting. It's not a joy to him. And he was like, I know that I would just take freaking forever doing it myself, because he is a perfectionist. So he hired it out, and we are so happy with the paint colors. But separately during this time, Finley was also completing some side quests in the house, like installing this iSpring whole house water filtration system. And what's so crazy about getting the honor of working with iSpring is that we already use and love their spin down sediment filter. And Finley actually installed it in a video with you guys last year. And when they reached out to us about working together, we were simply fangirling. You guys know that we're on a well, and while I personally love having well water, it does require some check-ins every once in a while to make sure it's safe for our family to be drinking and bathing in. The iSpring whole house filtration system takes a bit of the worry out of having a well by filtering out chemicals and heavy metals, thus improving the taste and smell of your water. It also reduces calcium and magnesium buildup, which protects all of our pipes and appliances. I want to note though that this filtration system is not a water softener and has no effect on changing the water's hardness. It only provides protection against scale buildup and corrosion. iSpring also offers other specialized filters compatible with this system, targeting contaminants such as PFAs, chloramine, and lead. You can customize your system based on your specific water conditions. And we do have half PEX pipes and half copper pipes, so corrosion is always a concern with the old copper ones. So if you want to take the next step in ensuring that you're drinking healthy water, definitely check out iSpring. They have a wide selection of products, but the link to the whole house water filtration system will be in the description box as well as the comments. Thanks, iSpring. I guess the main thing that I'm trying to get across in this video is that there's always one big project that Finley is working on in the background, but he'll also have his hand in a couple of other things that just need to be sought to sooner. So while the painters were painting away, he was like, okay, I can see to some of those as well. Perks of hiring out a job for once, I suppose. But once the painters finished in mid-October, we really had to move out all of the furniture that was put in here. Even if it was temporary, we were like, oh God, we need to get all of the furniture off the floors because we need to rip up the old floors, especially the disgusting blue carpet that we had been hating for years. That was so cathartic to see taken to the dump. Honestly, I was like, bye-bye, rotten hell. But that was all prep work to start putting down new hardwood floors that would go throughout this whole space. And while I had that joy to look forward to on the horizon of the day that we'd have these new gorgeous floors, also on the day-to-day, I had to live with all of our furniture and decor just stuffed into one corner of our living space. Half of it, I would say, went down to the basement, but most of it was just like so large we didn't want to carry it down the basement stairs, so we just put it all in this one area where it sat for about 5 months before we were able to move back into this space. So Lord knows I'm like, oh yeah, kicking back in here with all this space, because this being the larger part of our house, not really having access to it. I mean, we still had access to the new bathroom, but I wasn't like laying down a couple of blankets among the sawdust and getting cozy, you know what I mean? So I really just was very grateful that we have a door in this space to just shut off the wing from everything else and just leave it as a little construction zone. And in November, we finally got a new subfloor down, got the hardwood floors delivered and started installing them. So like I said, we were kind of breadcrumbing you, filming and uploading renovation vlogs all last summer. But then when Vlogmas started creeping up, I honestly just started collecting all of this footage and putting it in a folder to give to you later, because I was like, already making such long Vlogmas videos, like hour-long videos every week, and the renovation footage was just also going to be long. So I was like, you know what? I'll just give them a wing video when it comes. And that day has finally come, so I hope you enjoy. Let's start off with the hardwood floor install.
So we've got some rows down in here. It's looking good. It's going well. This is 4 rows. I'm just trying to mix the grain pattern, get a lot of nice variation in there so there's not weird large patches of specific grains. My sister is in here cutting the bottoms of the drywall.
So that if the boards expand, they can expand into the gap. There's going to be baseboard put down, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
Very nicely done. Picked my longest, straightest boards, put those down in this first row. Second row was a little nerve-wracking too, but once I got that down, it's been a clean process from there on.
So the flooring that we got was around 1,100 square feet of white oak from a local manufacturer that shall not be named, because we ended up having a lot of problems throughout the process that I don't want to give them free promo. I mean, we did buy it discounted because they advertised it as the floorboards being bowed and warped a little bit. So we started to run into problems pretty early on in the installation process. And that was a big learning lesson for us, to just not buy discounted materials for such a large space when the only reason they were discounted is because of a sort of, I don't know if malfunction is the right word, but they were gorgeous floors and we wanted to go locally with them. And obviously I'm so glad that they ended up turning out beautifully, but there were so many hiccups along the way with installation and finishing the floors that I really don't think it was worth like doubling that time to have the floors in the end. I mean, I don't know. Was it worth it? I wasn't the one laying the floors and dealing with all of the crap. You'll have to ask Finley.
So everything's been going really good, getting nice tight seams. Now I'm at a bit of a tricky place though. Basically, I had the plan of how I was gonna install it. I told the manufacturers of the flooring, local manufacturer, what my plan was. They said that sounds good, you know, as if that's what they would do too, kind of. And then when I looked it up, everything said have an underlayment under the hardwood. I already had my plan, so I just stuck with it. I didn't do like a trowel glue and I didn't put an underlayment down. It is a double thick subfloor, but essentially I just do a little serpentine line of this under where the next board is gonna go, directly onto the subfloor. Tap that board in with one of these nifty hammers. These are like purpose built for flooring, so you can really whack it with this side. It won't dent anything because of the big rubber cover. And then this has a little angle on it to help not damage the top finish of the boards when you're banging them together. There's these pneumatic flooring nailers, which you can rent. They're not too expensive for, this is about 1,000 square feet, so I just ended up buying one. And you just give this a thwack and it'll shoot a nail in at an angle, but they're big, you know, so if the edge of my flooring's here, I need this much space at minimum to put a row in. You know, I was able to hit it like directly up against the wall without damaging anything too bad. I still had 3 rows or 2.5 rows to go. So on the next row, I used 2-inch 18 gauge brad nails in this thing, but this thing's also huge. And you can't just shoot it through the top, you need to put it at an angle through the tongue. So now I've got about 1.5 rows left, and I just can't fit this at any sort of angle. It would have to go straight through the tongue, which would then mess up the groove connection when I tried to put it in the next row. So I'm like, shit, what do I do? And normally this wouldn't be such a big problem. I'm using glue, so the glue will hold it. So just tap the boards in, no big deal. But this is very expensive flooring, and the only reason I was able to get it is because this was a discounted bundle, because it was, you know, had some warping, bowing, stuff like that. And that just makes installation harder across the board, but particularly for this, because it'll just bow up off the glue and not, you know, set flat and right. So my strategy right now was to go through, pick some of the more like flat, straight, intact boards. I'm gonna do my process, gluing, and then rather than nailing on this tongue, which is what you would normally do, I'm gonna face nail the back where it meets against the wall and will be hidden under the trim. And then I'll nail here to help suck that side down, and that should get my 2 ends nice and flat and held against the floor strong enough for the glue to set and, you know, keep it that way permanently. And I think that's gonna work for me. Another real challenge I'm having is once you get up to the wall, one of the videos I watched said you're gonna want, I forget what kind of jack it's called, but essentially it's for flooring, but it jacks up against the wall to help pull the next row up tight. But what still works well is doing this. So, you know, if I want to get this corner tight, I just put this at an angle and pull like that until the bottom plate is giving leverage. But I can put my spacers in here with it leveraged, and that should keep that gap small. So I'll start in this back corner and then kind of work my way down. So I've been fighting a few of these boards, and I'm hoping that these are some straight ones. I think I'm gonna click it all together with no glue just to make sure it'll look good. Then I'll lay out the glue like this. I'm using a good amount of glue here. So I won't be using the brad nailer at all here. I'm just gonna use this nail gun. So I'll put one as close as I can to this edge. And I'll try to get it as close as I can to the other edge. It takes a little balancing, just take my time, make sure it's set up right. And I'll try to show some action shots of me actually doing this once I get to the other rooms. My sister was in town helping me with this, so I just was kind of focused on doing it rather than filming it, but still got more than about half the space to do, so plenty more to film.
I think Finley, as well as I, have a sort of insecurity that nobody really cares about certain parts of the renovation unless you are specifically renovating your house or intend to at a later date, and you're kind of like casting these lessons that you learn aside, or maybe like saving them to a folder for later on, because I mean, fixer-uppers are becoming a lot more common in this housing market for people to obviously be able to afford. And so that's kind of like our idea of the people who watch the renovation, you know? But if we're wrong about that, please let us know. I just have to say though that when I edit Finley, I very much so try to not be biased in being his wife with the things that I think are interesting. I'm like, would the girlies and girlinas like this? No. So I'm going to be cutting the 50 minutes of footage that you spent talking about getting the right angle on your miter saw, you know? But then I have the girlies and girlinas in my life here in Vermont who are carpenters and woodworkers and who care deeply about this shit too, you know? And they're like, I would love to talk to Finley for an hour about miter saws. That would be awesome, because I have no one else to talk to about it. And I don't mean to like gender woodworking either, but with my demographic being mostly 25 to 35 age range women, I'm like, maybe they just don't care. And so then I cut a lot. But just know, the renovation footage I try to keep as interesting as one can make it. I overall just want it to be helpful or funny. That's kind of my goal.
So I've been keeping the filming pretty limited on this because I don't want a repeat of the last floor project where there was about 30 hours of footage. I wanted to show kind of an interesting transition point I'm at. Started over on that side of the wing. I was springing the floor this direction. I get to this point here where now I'm moving into a separate room. And these are pretty tough because, I still got about half of the boards to meet right here, which is good. So I picked a really long, really straight board here because it's extending into an open space where I have no guideline kind of. Glue and nail this board in. And then I extended it all the way to the other side of the room. But once I get into this room, the built-in tongue's on this side. So I need to add a second tongue on this side so I can nail from this direction and keep going into those closets. So that's what I just did. So I have these, I had to trim these down from the size that they were shipped at, but they just slip in like that. Put a little wood glue inside that seam, and that's what you see here. And then I went back with the nailer and nailed from this side. I was a little worried it would split the tongue, but it didn't because they go in at a diagonal. My plan is to maybe put another row or two here just to kind of give some backing there. And then I'll continue on in this room.
So while we had a lot of cons to list with the flooring installation, we also had some pros, obviously. Gorgeous boards, lots of variety in the patterns. So Finley was able to, pick certain boards that had marbling texture that he wanted to be laid next to one that had more of like a lined texture. And that gave him a lot of creative flow with the installation. So that was really wonderful of them to give us so much flooring, right? But also I think that there were certain parts of the installation process where Finley was just like, what boards next? How do I randomize them? And kind of like letting his perfectionism get, not in the way, but like just make the process much longer. And that's not a bad thing. Sometimes your perfectionism just jumps the hell out when you're doing a creative project.
Even after doing all of this space, which is well over half of the square footage I need to do, I still have all of these boards of many different lengths to choose from. And that's allowing me to get perfect, within an inch or so, perfect lengths for each section that I want, and getting to hand pick, okay, here's where I want a board to end so that it's not matching with any other seams nearby. But yeah, it's been nice. So, that's why I haven't filmed too much. Maybe I'll lay out a few rows and then film me nailing them in, but I take a lot of time just measuring. Obviously, you don't want seams right next to each other. That's hideous, that's horrible. So, you can see what I did here. This is a full length one. Most of these splits are towards the edges, so overall it's a pretty good spread. And aside from a couple, that's about 2 inches I have to cut off there, but for the most part, this is pretty perfectly spaced, so very happy with it. It's a beautiful floor. Everybody's telling me not to stain it at all, so I think I'm just gonna abstain from stain, if you hear me. So this is the stuff that kills me. If you look really closely there, this board is just slightly slimmer. It's tight over here, it's tight along here, but once you get to this place, there's just nothing I can do about that gap, especially not using the nail gun. I have some beef with the milling of these boards. I've also found variance in the thickness because this is engineered flooring of the top actual white oak layer, which they told me was impossible. And I took a picture to show them that it's not. I really don't know what to do about this stuff. I'll probably just try to use sawdust and glue or something to fill that gap the best I can. This method is great if you have gaps between your boards, maybe in one section for one reason or another. This method works great, so just do a really light glue line along where the boards meet, and then just come in, rub the sawdust in there. It'll blend those seams perfectly, cover any black line up, and then when you refinish over, it'll just totally make it invisible. Obviously, it's not going to work for a 1/4 inch gap or something like that, but for anything like a 1/16 inch or something like that, it works perfectly. It's the kind of thing where once this is all done and finished, I'll never think about it again, but I do try to get it as good as I possibly can while I'm doing it. But, most of you are probably looking at this looks good enough to me, so you know what they say, looks good from my house.
How I could describe the flooring process in the install to you is that we just had so many highs and lows. We would be like, it's looking amazing! And then 5 minutes later, we would be like, crap, this looks horrible. But that being said, I think it is really helpful to note that this flooring project was Finley's first new hardwood floor install. He had done like laminate wood floors before. He had refinished the wood floors in our bedroom upstairs and done some tiling and stuff like that, but nothing where he was working with real wood and dealing with all of the implications that come. So put some respect on his name. Sheesh. I could never. I mean, just watching the process back, I was like, dude, the things you had to do and see with this floor. It would have tested my patience daily. And then the flooring was laid and it looked so stunning and perfect and amazing, even just as the raw white oak. And Finley did such a great job with the install, but because of the warped boards, we started to notice some rather unsavory problems that were starting to pop up. Literally, some of the boards started delaminating after they were all secured to the floor. But Finley's gonna talk a little bit about that issue now and how we remedied it.
This is really because of the wood stove. First, this only happened here. It's really harder to see on the camera. It looks worse in real life, but you know, this board, the veneer on it kind of split. So like this right here, that's obviously a massive problem. It's so dried out from the pellet stove. The finish on here is literally so lifted. To sand this even, I'm almost sanding off the entire top layer, which is terrible. So hopefully I can like get enough pressure here and then glue it down so I have at least some veneer on there. And that's what's really frustrated me about the flooring that I got, where they advertised it as there's bowing and warping, which is fine. You know, like they were like, it'll take extra installation time to deal with that. And it did, but it was manageable. What they didn't mention was that a ton of these boards were also delaminated. That's just trash, like I can't use that. And I didn't realize that for a long time until I was basically done with this whole section here. So I kept running into these problems where I'm like, why the hell is this elevated here? Finally, it dawned on me what was going on, and I was more careful from that point forward picking my boards. And then even still, some of them delaminated, even though I made sure they were good when I picked them. So that's like really pissed me off because this was really expensive flooring, even at the discounted price. And they gave me a lot. I think it was like a little over 1,000 square feet is advertised. I did this whole space and I measured what I have left. I have about just under like 150 square feet left. So gave me plenty extra. They could have just been like, hey, just keep an eye out. Some of these boards have delaminated. And I would have been like, oh, that's kind of annoying, but whatever. My quandary is if there's that gap, if weight goes on there, once I finish these floors, even if I sand it flat, you know, if there's a big enough gap there, that's still gonna press down and make like a divot at that point. Could mess up the finish, could give a slight flex feel in certain points. So I'm just thinking like, do I just say screw it and kind of sand everything flat? Or like I even thought about, this is just too insane. But I was like, I could get my littlest drill bit, drill a hole, get a syringe full of like super glue, and then syringe super glue in there, hold it down. Honestly, it's like a good plan, and I might do it in 1 or 2 places if it would make a huge difference in a couple places.
Then we started discussing all of our color options for the floor, which is always the most exciting part for me of these construction things. Because, you know, I'm not really holding the hammer and using the pneumatic nailer, and where I shine is being the architect behind the scenes, or shall I say the interior designer. So I like making the decor choices, seeing what color options we have, and how I could bring my personal visions to life. I, at first, thought we would go with a very dark walnut for these floors, and I think I mentioned that in a video last summer or fall, and people were like, hey, don't do that. It will show every single dog hair. I do have a blonde dog, and it will show every crumb and everything. So just keep that in mind when you choose your flooring. And then we started showing people how gorgeous the raw wood floor was, just in its white oak state, and everybody was like, yeah, don't put anything on that at all. Don't stain it. Just do like a polyurethane coat to make it shine, bring all the little accentuations of the wood and the personality of the white oak out. And I'm so happy that we ended up doing that, because we do have a lot of, you know, dark walnut beams and these other colors throughout this space, that we don't need dark wood everywhere.
I've talked about it with a few people, including the Ariel Bissett. She was a big proponent of no stain, as most of us have she's had some unpleasant experiences trying to stain floors. And I too have had mildly unpleasant experiences trying to stain floors. My real trauma was around the polyurethane. The stain I managed all right, but still, 1,000 square feet in here. I'm not trying to do that. Like, I wouldn't put an invisible stain on for fun. If it looks better with no stain, hey, who am I to complain, you know? I'll go downstairs, I'll show you the test results. This is no stain right here. The ones closer to me are 2 coats of the stain, and then the top is 1 coat of the respective colors.
Something else that was very helpful in the color choice process was the fact that our walls were already painted. And as I'm sure some of you know, if you're renovating your house, it's always very difficult to decide the order of events that is best when you're renovating a space. Like, do you do the walls first? Do you do the floors first? Which one is going to cause the least amount of damage to the other if something were to happen? But in our bedroom renovation, we did the floors first, and then when we did the walls, we jacked up the floors so much that we were like, no, let's do the walls first this time. And I'm so happy that we did. So that's a little tidbit that we learned along the way as well.
I like this darker one. I like this one too, but we've all said like keep it as light as possible. And honestly, looking at it through the camera, I do like this better than these two. They have like a kind of piss color to them. It looks better in real life. It really highlights that beautiful marbling effect that's in white oak. I really love that, and this doesn't do that nearly as much slash at all, but I think it's also just because of the grain. You can kind of see some marbling right there, but I think in here there's just not much marbling effect. And this does have the finished product I'm using, the Vermont Naturals Polyway. All of this has the Polyway finish on it. I think ultimately I'll end up going with this, but I do want to just do one more test before I do anything insane and final. If I ever sell the house, next owner can come in, paint it white.
So ultimately, yes, we did decide that no stain was the name of our game when it came to our hardwood floors, and Finley just started to prep all of them to put down the Vermont Natural Coatings Polyway mixture that we love for refinishing floors. It's a very low VOC product compared to other ones out on the market. But when he started sanding all of the floors and getting them prepared for the poly, then we just had this whole probably like month-long process of fixing the delaminated boards and weighing them down and gluing them. And the process was just so time-consuming to watch in real time. And so he kind of sporadically filmed that because I think it was, well, not I think, I know it was an insanely stressful process for him to just think about the implications of if he didn't do it. It would just cause a lot of problems later on, especially when we move furniture in here, right?
So my spot sanding's going pretty well. Just kind of going over everything, trying to get it pretty flat. I've had some issues like right here. I'm about to pull this off, see how this worked. But it was so delaminated, super glue wouldn't work. So I put wood glue in there and put all this concrete. I made a little rig to put all the weight right on where it was elevated and delaminated underneath. So let's see how much it worked. Okay, that worked pretty well. I mean, it's still messed up and bad, but it's a lot better than it was. It's not flexing anymore, which is the big problem. And all this will sand off, so it won't look so ugly when I'm done. You can still see there's quite a lip there, but it's a lot better than it was. It was extremely problematic before. So it's good to know where I have really bad issues. It's hard to find things that are like heavy enough that you can put on a small pinpoint of space, and this method actually works well. So there's a few other areas I know I'm gonna need to do this. I might just go ahead and do it there right now, and then sand around it, get back to it. This wood only needs to be clamped for 30 minutes, and the weight is acting as my clamp. Renting this floor sander has been an absolute game changer. It's like $80-some for 24 hours. I'll have it for a little longer, so it'll probably cost me like 120 bucks. And then you have to buy some extra stuff, so it is a bit expensive. It'll be under $200 for sure to have this thing. But what am I getting for that money? My body's getting saved from a tremendous amount of work. That's like pretty hard on the body. So much time. I mean, doing this all with either of my sanders would just take weeks probably for me to do it properly. I'm literally doing most of that in a day. I will say, because my boards were messed up, you know, I had to take multiple days of prep work. First using the palm sander, but then using my belt sander to shave down all the raised areas, doing the glue stuff I was showing. So there was a good amount of prep work before I rented the sander because I wanted to rent it for the least amount of time possible. And that all really did need to be done. It wasn't a waste of time to do that because the sander This one that I got in particular, it's for prepping for finishes. It's not for taking down harsh disparities in floor heights and stuff like that, or gouges or any, you know, it's just for finish prep. I'll just show a quick little bit of me using it. I'm just casually cruising. I mean, I feel like I'm driving a Cadillac. Now I'll show you a little bit of what the vibes are like. I'm also gonna disclaim that I was only doing quick rotations for the filming. I would have just gone all the way down, but as soon as I started, I was like, it's just gonna take forever to even get back here.
Most of that process was done when I was filming Vlogmas, so this was like, what, early December? And that's also when I found out that I was pregnant. So I was like, oh my God, I gotta stay far, far away from any of the finish work of the wing, which I generally do, you know? I'm like, that's your job, and I'm working on this. I'm cooking this up, okay? This is my renovation project. But because I was so busy with Vlogmas and kind of checked out to the renovation going on, in a way, I was not really checking in on his filming and looking at all of the clips and whatnot on our final cut, and I realized that he actually never even filmed himself putting on the polyway coat, which is kind of a bummer because I had the camera like every day anyway, so it wasn't really giving him the opportunity to set up the camera for filming, and he was just like, we can just show them once it's all done. So here you go, hun. This is what it looked like with the polyway coat on it, and god damn, it looks good. But I have to tell you in truth, Finley actually had to refinish these floors twice because of the delaminating. So he did one polyway coat in December and then did more of the floorboard gluing and weighing down and sanding and refinishing with another polyway coat in February. So if I had him here with me, I think he would probably say that he never wants to think about these floors ever again. And hopefully we never have to.
Okay, so here I am in the bedroom. Got it cleared out, got the doors up and installed. I didn't really film too much of that process. I haven't been filming as much recently. It's just funny how when you're renovating a whole space, there's like no order of operations that's painless. Like, you know, got stain on the walls because I was staining in here. You know, I tried to drop cloth this whole room, but still got some stain on the floors. When I was finishing the floors, I got the poly on the walls. It's just impossible to never make a mistake. So here's what walking in would be like. And I wanted to show the light up here too. So I put in this fan light. This is a Honeywell fan. They're really cheap. I also have that light box that I can attach a switch to and have a secondary light. If we want some mood lighting in here, then I've got a light up here. I'm gonna switch for that. And then of course, a closet light for in here, which isn't installed yet.
So obviously also with such a big space, there are so many little projects that pop up along the way that you start having to pay more mind to and can really go down a whole rabbit hole. So we decided to not go down a whole rabbit hole with this, but I will share it with you today because I need your input, okay? What should we do for the fireplace? We originally were thinking about putting in like a built-in gate system around it for childproofing, but I'm kind of team no gate because we already have a retractable gate that shuts off the living room from the wood stove, and our daughter knows wood stove equals hot. But then at the same time, other children may come over, there might be an accident, you know, somebody falls towards the wood stove, stuff like that. But most parent friends that I have out here, when I ask them about their wood stove and what they do for safety in that arena, they go, well, I just teach my kid that fire's hot. My idea though, for why I don't really want the eyesore of a gate around it, is that my two materials that I have in mind, like if we were to do an iron gate, that would get too hot to the touch if someone were to grab it, and then a wood gate is too flammable. But then a plastic gate makes me be like, that's gonna be ugly. But please let me know your 2 cents down below, because you also have to keep in mind that the wood stove needs to open. It has to open so we can vacuum it out and all that kind of stuff. And again, like I said, we already have a retractable gate, so I'm like, would you guys just recommend we just keep that? I don't know.
I left a 3.5-inch gap here. That's, you know, the width of the nominal 2x4. So I was gonna kind of try to build up a fence around this thing, but I need it to be like baby proof. So I just haven't really I think I'm just gonna do that after everything. I just don't really have my finished idea for how that's gonna go yet. I have to marinate on that one.
I don't know, man. The wood stove, it keeps us warm and we love it, but we're about to be out of the season of using it anyway. But I guess speaking of keeping this space warm, Finley also had to do another side quest throughout this project that we did not anticipate really when we started, of re-insulating every single outlet box. It was very worth it because not only was he making every electrical connection in this wing safer, he also was installing these like tamper-proof outlet covers where, I don't know, you can look them up, but they only work a certain way. So like if a kid tries to shove something into the outlet, it just wouldn't let them. So that was a whole thing too of redoing some electrical things, but also during that time, he decided to put in some new switches that have significantly improved the quality of our lives in using this space.
The switch to turn on the lights in that hall, it feels like somebody's blowing into the room with cold air. Like behind all these electrical boxes, it seems like there's virtually, nothing there aside from whatever wood is on the siding. So I wanted to do something to try to alleviate that draft because I'm already planning to go through, switch out all the outlets because nothing's ever wired properly in here. So if I'm already opening all those boxes, I might as well use that opportunity to try to insulate behind them. So I got this great stuff. This is the lower expansion one for doors and windows. You don't want to use like a super high expansion because it can cause problems back there. So I have a gun for this stuff. So you put this in and I'll spray it in the holes. The second thing I'm gonna use is these right here. It's hard to see, but you can see the outline of a bunch of different options, like where screw holes, a switch, double outlets, a GFCI. So I'll just punch out whatever I need to, put these under the cover plate, and that'll help seal up any drafts between the gang box and the drywall. So that's all of the insulation stuff I'll be doing. But one last thing I wanted to talk about, this is actually something that may be useful for a lot of people. Say you have a light in a staircase, like right there, and there's a switch right there to turn on or off the light, but none upstairs. That's non-code compliant most places here. You want a switch at the top too. The only way to do that traditionally would be to open up walls, run or fish wires through walls. The point just being that it's seriously involved. So this is a way to circumnavigate that and get those same results where you'd get a second switch for literally, I think this costs 25 bucks or something like that, which is vastly cheaper than what that would cost to hardwire it. Basically it works like this. You would replace that switch with this right here, which is just an on and off, no dimmer, nothing special to this. So this goes to the light. This is the hot line, this is the neutral, this is the ground. So you just wire it in like that, and this switch will just work like your last one did. But it has a little transceiver thing in here that picks up a signal from this other switch that it's paired to, and that's just this thing right here. So this doesn't go in a gang box. This, you just pop the cover off, screw it onto the wall, so this is facing out anywhere you want at the top of that staircase. It allows you to accomplish something that would otherwise cost probably thousands of dollars for 25. So that's pretty incredible. So that's our kitchen area. You walk in here, you can't turn on the lights until you get all the way over there to that box. Obviously that makes no sense. One day we'll have a deck out here, and then it'll make sense to have a switch by that door, but there's no actual switch when you're outside walking in here. So I'm gonna put the smaller signal switch outside that door. When I was putting in this bathroom here where this wall is, I didn't put any outlets along this wall, all in this back area of the wing. We didn't have any outlets really. So on the kitchen side of this wall, we have an outlet on this side of the door and an outlet on that side of the door. So that allows me, I've only done it on this side so far, but I'll cut a hole on the other side as well and tap into each of those outlet boxes to add receptacles to this side of the wing, which will be great. You want to set up a record player right here or something, now you have somewhere to plug it into. These are on two different circuits, but I just brought them across to the other side of the wall. In hindsight, I wish that I made them equidistant, but the other box is on that middle one, so they would have interfered with each other. I could have tried to bring this one over here, but I just didn't plan that far ahead.
After the electrical, Finley moved on to trim and baseboard. And I've been joking around to my friends that I've been, talking to and venting to in real time about how long this project has taken us, that I just need to call my husband Finley Finish Work. That's how he should change his name, because he is obsessed with finish work. All of the tiny little details that you will see throughout this space are huge decisions in this man's life. And I know that if you give a mouse a cookie, right? If I gave him even more trim and baseboard, he would make this place look even better than it already does. But in editing, what really blew my mind was just like the sheer love of geometry to get every angle right. And not only on the saw, but like with the curve of the wood. Baseboard was probably the biggest annoyance of this space, with the floors not being very level, which is pretty typical with an old build, you know, when you're not starting from scratch with new construction, because houses settle and they shift with time, right? Because when we laid down that straight piece of baseboard, you know, next to the flooring, we were like, oh crap, you can see the gap of how unlevel this is, and we're gonna need to remedy that for sure. So he ended up coming to the boss, me, and asking about adding a little footer on every baseboard piece of quarter round trim, which is basically just like a slightly ridged, like it's kind of like a cup at the bottom. And it looks very eleganza, and I told him just add that. It will cover the gaps and hopefully also allow for, you know, some of the flooring to expand and contract in humidity. And if it makes you happy, hun, if it makes you happy, you should do it.
Just as kind of a reminder, I'm doing stain grade trim here, which is just significantly harder if you're trying to get a good end result, because when you're doing paint grade, you can just fill any gaps with caulk, paint over everything. With this though, any imperfection is gonna show. It's the cross I bear. Life can be really just a pain in the dick sometimes. There's a ton of these gapped bottoms. I don't want to waste the time trying to fix these things if I'm just gonna quarter round it later anyways. So I got the go ahead on the quarter round, and I think that's definitely gonna be the right choice. But you can kind of see what the quarter round look will be like. I think it's a more elegant, classy look anyways. I've been having a little more trouble with this trim than I feel like is merited for the actual difficulty of it. And here's why. Look at this. That is insane. The bottom has a massive difference. So if I'm being realistic, what I should really do right now is line all these up with each other, find the smallest one, go back with all my others, rip them all down to that same width so that I'm working with even pieces. Because like in this corner, I'll show you an example of what happens when the pieces aren't the same width, they just don't marry together properly. So this is a coped corner. Yeah, I didn't do it perfectly, but I did it like twice to try to get it better, and both times it just hasn't worked because the pieces aren't the same. This is just the type of stuff that sucks to worry about and have to do. You know, you go like, I wish that professional mills were a little better. And same thing with my flooring. That really pissed me off when I saw like different widths. I'm like, y'all have one job, come on.
I gotta tell you guys, this whole process of watching all of these clips back made me think, does everybody care about this stuff as much as my husband? Because he is obsessed with how things are milled, how they are created, and I love that about him. I love the way his mind works. But it made me just start thinking about all of the homes that I have been to in my life and how I've never once noticed how their baseboard meets in each corner. But please let me know down below if you have trim and baseboard in your house. Go look at the corner in one of your rooms and just let me know, are those two edges meeting beautifully? Was the miter right on that? Or are you just kind of like, looks fine to me. I wouldn't know what to look for if I even tried.
This is a coping saw. It cuts on the downstroke, at least that's the way I have the blade set up right now. Somebody said this on a video, hold it like a bird. That's a great way to put it. You're trying to just hold this thing so gently. You want to be doing nothing like with a hard grip, forcing the blade anywhere. Just hold it like a bird, because it just doesn't want to go, you know? So you got to get it started. That's what's the hardest. So now I'm started. Like, that's good. That's what you want. I usually don't leave it that thick. That's okay. I can slam that down. Beautiful.
A little bit of context for the meticulousness of my husband, though, is that he mentored underneath a very, I don't know if obsessive is the right word, but also meticulous perfectionist. in Virginia who specialized in Japanese carpentry, which pretty much only uses hand tools and hand saws and all that kind of stuff. So you're taking off these tiny little slivers of wood by hand. You're not really using power tools as much. And that experience, I know, really informed this whole trim and baseboard process. And I'm grateful, obviously, that he cares so much. It's like, I don't want this place to be looking ugly. And I have to say too, I'm not the only one who calls my husband a perfectionist, because I ran into the man who painted these interior walls at the bar a couple weekends ago because I went out with my friends for my birthday, and he was like, oh, right, you're the one with the perfectionist husband. And I was like, that's me. Because Finley, when he hired the painters, he was like, maybe we do a 4th coat. I'm gonna pay you, obviously, for your extra time. And he would just be like, all right, man.
These 3 stacks back here are my door casing. This is all my quarter round. This stuff is gonna go up to hide that transition where the little lip is showing up there. I forget what it's called when you do this. You know, I put a little cap on there. There's a way to do that. And it honestly looks really nice. It's worth doing. The sanding's easy because I can stack them all up afterwards. It's the staining where I have to spread them all out to dry. I might just buy a bunch of sawhorses today. I do have a ton of space up here to spread out, let things dry. I'm doing the staining up here because it's, you know, 10 degrees outside or something like that, and the garage is not heated. The stain is just it goes on so badly when it's that cold.
Also, for the trim and baseboard color, we ended up going with a dark walnut to contrast the paint colors and whatnot. And at first I really wanted to go with white, and I'm so glad that we didn't, because the stain just looks so gorgeous contrasted to the floor, and it really ties everything together beautifully with the original wood beams in this house, so no regrets at all. And even if it took a lot more time to do the sanding and staining than it would have if we just painted everything white, I mean, it's the little things, man.
We got the first coat on here. Haven't finished them all, but giving a little walkthrough. That's a stack I still need to hit. This is all the quarter round. And in the spirit of filming more action and less words, I'm gonna film myself doing a baseboard piece.
Now, I know Finley and I both mentioned this in this video before, but deciding on the order of operations for your renovated space is infuriating to do, because then even when I was joking earlier about my conversation with the painter and how Finley asked him to do a 4th coat, we still had to go back to those walls X amount of months later and put on more drywall compound and sand it and then put on more paint. And when I say we had to do that, I mean Finley had to do that, okay? So it's like, you really can't win.
I decided to spot treat the drywall. The previous owner had done some pretty poor jobs, and believe it or not, I have as well. This is worse than anywhere else. I accidentally splattered stain, so I covered all those spots. More so like this, building out around some of these entryways to get these walls flatter. I had all these white patches in the green walled areas and painted those. About to do this now. I decided to do 2 coats of primer over it, 1 good coat of the color, and then kind of going over a second time just to make sure I hit any light spots. And the color blended really nicely using a little mini roller. All in all, it's coming together. My name's Finley Orstrom, and today we'll be putting up some trim. I've prepared a few of these pieces here. This was the first, allegedly. Here we got a nice cut, mitered this perfectly to the angle. Let's show a little action, because for all you know, it could be Rue who actually is doing all the hard work when I turn the camera off. So to do this job, we're getting my piece of wood, and I'm talking about that piece of wood, you perverts. A couple of clips, clamps. I'm wearing my good sweatshirt, so I'll just hang them on my sweatshirt pocket. One thing I've done in preparation here, for anybody who's curious, put 2 18-gauge brad nails and a couple of scrap pieces of wood here so I can clamp this piece up. Without that, this would be a lot harder to get nice. And then I'm just gonna pry them off after. Another thing is, this is a pretty flexible piece of wood, but this is not straight at all, so ideally I'd like to hide that. Now we'll get out those clamps y'all have been begging me for. Oh yeah, that's looking right. That's what I'm talking about. 2 inches of steel. Go for it, take it in, be my guest.
I eventually had to cut off Finley finish work from just following his heart's desires with how much trim he wanted to put up in this space before we moved all of our furniture in here, because I was like, dude, we have enough. I understand that there are a lot of places in this house where one piece of wood meets up with another piece of drywall. And because of wood expanding and contracting, it can, you know, make the drywall crumble. So Finley just wanted to put trim along like vertical seams as well as horizontal seams, just so we didn't have to do caulking in some areas. I love that word. It never gets unfunny to me. But anyway, that's why it took so damn long. And after a while, I was just like, wrap it up, buddy. And normally I try very hard to not do that because I know that he's rushing himself in his own mind and trying not to do things poorly. But I really had a timeline for ending off this renovation because my sister was coming into town for like my birthday weekend, and she was gonna stay in Corvidia's bedroom for the first time. She was going to be the first guest we had in this new finished space, and we just needed to have me deep clean it in a video that you'll see soon, and also move in all of the furniture.
So I went to the store the other day and I got some trim. I could buy even more trim. I mean, there's other places I could trim, absolutely. Right here, for instance, I actually would really love to trim around there, but don't know how to. So these pieces will go up like this. And I felt like inverted quarter round was a much nicer aesthetic than something protruding out. The other thing I got is just some more 3/4 inch quarter round. That's just gonna go follow those lines down. And the last thing I got was this stuff right here, which to show you the end profile, you can see it's a little cap piece. This protrudes back and you slot it on top of like a piece of drywall. So in a place like here, I can just slot that little lip right on top of here. I'm gonna put the same stuff over here, you know, just clean everything up. For these exterior wall kind of floor joist gaps, you have scrap pieces that I should be able to use for this room and the next room. For spaces like this, I'm just going to get a long piece of exterior trim, some pine board, stain it the same dark color, and slap it up there, hide all that.
Eventually, I just cut him off. Well, Rue decided that she's the one who wants to show you the wing. Almost ready for its move-in clean. Oh my God, I can hardly believe it. Just a couple things off the bat that I love. I love how the dark wood walnut stained beams contrast against the white ceiling. I'm so happy we painted the white ceiling. I love how this stain complements the floor and isn't the same color, but like some of the same tones are in this, just like my chocolate brown dog. She's not feeling very well today, hence the tail between the legs. I love how he did the little bevel, a turnaround, I don't know, something right here. I like that, and we might do something here different. We haven't really decided. Oh, I can hardly believe just how awesome everything looks. Rue, are you wanting to show them the transition, the gold transition that you walk through to get to our bathroom that we've never showed you? Because we also need to redo a bunch of stuff in the bathroom after we finish this project. There's a lot of things that we learned. The staircase is not finished because there's no reason to use the stairs to go up to the unfinished part of this wing. But Finley did put in all of these old trim pieces around the windows. We just kind of decided like, why cut new trim pieces and sand, stain, install when we're just gonna replace all of these crank out windows in the spring, and I'm filming this clip in March. Redid all of the electrical, tamper-proof outlets in the old ladies' room. Oh yeah. I mean, the lighting just looks good. I love it, the little acorn light. We have that in our own closet too. It's just awesome stuff, man. We're loving it. Finley's following me around so he can comment.
One of the things we still need to do is
yeah.
I mean, I can do that at any point of time, but I don't want to like not do that.
Also, I'm obsessed with this light. Finley said that he found it in the house somewhere. He was like, we could always switch that light out. I'm like, I love this light. It looks like a little jellyfish or a flower or something for the future reading nook. I love that Finley pushed for this quarter round piece to contrast against the white. We had our painters just paint this strip white, so I was worried that it would look kind of weird having those two pieces, but we were like, whatever. I'm happy we have fans in every room now, ceiling fans. We're gonna replace these wall sconce lights as well. Obviously, like I said, like every window you see in here is pretty much gonna be replaced in a couple of months. So, and this door as well. He still trimmed this door. I mean, because that trim will still look good because we're gonna get the same size door. We still have to stain this beam, by the way, but we have the stain and shellac and we just need to like wipe off. Well, Finley actually already started wiping off some of those so that he can make sure that if these had any issues, he could stay in it at the same time. And then also we still are working on what we're gonna do for this fireplace and transition, but at least want to get furniture back in here because we can. And still, obviously, like I said, we have tiny little things to do, but my God, I can't wait to get all this crap out of this freaking corner. There you have it, folks. I am so beyond pleased to be in this space with you guys, able to share all of this footage with you. And I'm just getting my gears turning about all of the other videos that can come now after you see this, because now I'll get the deep clean video up. That's also going to be my 29 lessons I learned at 29 video. And then we can go through together and truly decorate and take time with every room in here, because we haven't really gotten to do that very much. I mean, a little bit with the bedroom, but once renovations are completed in these areas, I don't really see them continuing other than when the windows get replaced and we'll have to do more drywall work and painting work as a result of that in the near future. But that's okay because it's worth it, and I hate all of the windows in here. Like, hate is a strong word, but it's a true word. I just have no idea why they were installed so poorly, and I'm ready to see them go. But living in here now just makes me see and recognize and really admire Finley's like creative choices in a lot of these renovations. And I'm just so grateful for him, because having a co-lead on all of these projects is so helpful, because my brain doesn't work the same way as his, right? So when he has these creative choices that I would normally go a different direction on, then I'm like, okay, maybe we make a compromise. And then when I compromise, I actually like it more in the end because his vision was really good all along, you know? So I'm like, woo, marry someone with taste, okay? Jeez. Anyway, very, very grateful for my handyman, so definitely give him some love in the comments down below. And thank you so much for watching from the bottom of my heart. I know this was a long one, but I also have an extended cut of this on Patreon because it can always be longer, honey. I do so much editing of these videos. It is crazy how much we film and what actually makes its way out to you. Just so many little decisions pile up with time. Anyway, I could talk for forever, you know that, but I will see you in my next video. Stay smiling. Bye, y'all.